What's happening, guys? Today we are going to still be working with polynomials, okay? Last time I think we subtracted polynomials. The time before that we added polynomials. This time we are going to be multiplying by polynomials, okay? But we're going to keep it simple. We're only going to multiply polynomials by monomials. And monomials are just, short little teeny tiny terms, okay? All right, so I'm going to start you off with something really easy, okay? Hopefully this makes a lot of sense to you. Let me start you off with this example, a times a, okay? Notice I said a times a. You've probably done this before, x times x. What's x times x? Well, that's x squared. So a times a is the same thing, it's a squared, okay? And I don't know if you remember, but I told you that anytime you just see an a like that and you don't see an exponent there, like here you see the exponent, it's a 2. Anytime you don't see that exponent, think about it as a 1, okay? If you don't see one there, put a 1, okay? All right, now I'll come back to this. Let's do another one, okay? Now, let's try this. A cubed times a to the 4th. Now, some of you guys are like, oh yeah, I know what to do. It's a to the 12th. And others are like, oh no, I know what to do. It's a to the 7th. And others are looking at each other like, what? Okay, so let me just remind you, what does a cubed mean? Well, it means a times a times a. Okay, a cubed is a times a times a. Times a to the 4th, isn't that a times a times a times a? Okay, and all together, don't we have a times a times a times a times a times a times a? How many times? 7 times. So we end up getting a to the 7th power. Okay, which means a times a times a times a times a times a times a. All right, now there is a shortcut. I don't know if you noticed. Can you find the relationship between a 1 and a 1 and a 2? How about a 3 and a 4 and a 7? If you said, oh, all I had to do was add the exponents, you're right, okay? Anytime the variable here matches the variable here, you can add the exponents together, okay? Speaking of which, let's do one like that, where I take a b squared and multiply it by a cubed b to the 5th, okay? We're multiplying everything. This really says a times b times b. Times a times a times a times b times b times b times b times b, okay? But you don't have to do all that. You can. I think it's great to do all that. But keep in mind, we have an a times an a cubed, okay? The variables match. The bases are the same. Since everything's multiplied together, we can do this. Since the bases are the same, or the variables are the same, how many do we have here? 1 of them. How many here? 3 of them. Okay, a to the 1st power, a to the 3rd power, so altogether you get a to the 4th power. Okay, I'll put the answer down here, a to the 4th power. And then here you have b squared. Here's another b to the 5th, so add them, you get b to the 7th. So I'll put a to the 4, b to the 7. Now if you don't believe me, if you're confused, watch this. Here's an a, right? A times, let me put the other a's right there. A times a times a times b times, ready? 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. How many a's? 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all multiplied, so that's a to the 4th. And how many b's? 7 of them. They're all multiplied, so that's b to the 7th. Okay, so again, make sure the letters match, add the exponents if you're multiplying. Okay? All right, let's do one that's kind of challenging. All right, it's going to look scary, but I know you guys can do it. Here we go. It is in parentheses, 3 x squared y z to the 4th times negative 2 x y to the 5th z to the 9th. Okay? All right, here we go. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Okay, x squared times x. Remember, that's an x to the 1st power. So a 2 plus a 1 is 3. So now we have x to the 3rd. We have a y. There's nothing there, so it's a 1. So we have a y to the 1st, y to the 5th. So add them. 1 and 5 is 6. So we have a y to the 6th. And here we have a z to the 4th and a z to the 9th. That's z to the 13th. All right. So now let's do some, I guess, multi-step problems. Okay? Let's try this. This is more of what you're going to see in your homework. All right, we have 5a to the 5th. There's our monomial, okay? Keep in mind we're going to be multiplying polynomials by monomials, so there's my monomial right there. I'm going to multiply it by 2a minus 7b. Okay, so 5a to the fifth times 2a minus 7b. Remember, all this is a distribution problem. We're going to take this and distribute it to that guy, and then we're going to take that and distribute it to that guy. Okay, so 5a to the fifth times 2a, well, 5 times 2 is 10. A to the fifth times a, remember there's a 1 there, add them, 5 and 1 is 6, so we get 10a to the sixth, okay? Now multiply this times that guy. So 5 times, not times 7, 5 times negative 7. That's negative 35. And then a to the fifth times b, well, they don't match, huh? They don't match. So don't be confused. You can't multiply them together, but you can. It's a to the fifth times b. You just write it like that. You just leave them, okay? You can't combine them together. Here, you try this one, okay? 9x squared times 4x plus 3y squared. Okay, you try that one. All right, here we go. 9x squared, we're going to take that guy and multiply it to this guy. So 9 times 4 is 36. X squared, x to the first, add them. 2 and 1 is 3, so x to the third. Plus, right, so 9x squared. Now we're going to multiply it to this guy. 9 times 3 is 27. It's a positive 3, so plus 27. X squared times y squared. The bases are not the same. The letters, the variables do not match, so just write them separately. X squared, y squared. Okay? All right, let's try one more here. 4n squared times 3m squared minus 2n to the fifth. Okay, same thing. Multiply that guy to there. 4 times 3 is 12. N squared times m squared, they're not the same. Okay, so don't put them together. I like to put them in alphabetical order, so m goes first. So m squared, then the n squared. Okay, now multiply this guy by that. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. N squared times n to the fifth, add 2 and 5, that's 7, so n to the seventh. Okay. Finally, I have one that is going to be just one step more than that. Okay. Here it is right here. Okay. It is 4p, parentheses, 3p squared minus 2pq plus 7q squared. Okay. All we're doing now is just multiplying this times this, then times this, then times this. We're doing the exact same thing, but one more term. Okay, so take that guy, multiply it there. 4 times 3 is 12. P, remember there's a 1 there. P times p squared, add them, so that's p to the third. Okay, now multiply this times that, so 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. P to the 1 times p to the 1, that's a p squared. And don't forget there's also a q there, so you can put the q, okay? So that was that times that, okay? Now we're going to multiply this guy times that guy, and that's the last one. So 4 times 7, positive 7, that's 28, so plus 28. P to the first times q to the second. The letters, the bases, the variables, they're different. So the 1 cannot be added to the 2. You just write them down. P, that's p to the 1. I don't need to write it. And then q squared. Okay, and then we're done. All right, hopefully that was helpful. I'll talk to you soon.